Ever since the creation of the MCU, there have been a few deviations from our geopolitical world. Namely, 3 fictional nations were added into the universe: Sokovia, Wakanda, and Madripoor. I can confidently say the writers of MCU didn't plan these fictional nations out with care. Oh, trust me, just take a look at this clip.
Sokovia.
They couldn't even locate Sokovia consistently. Since the people Disney hires to make their movies can't do their job properly, I'll do it for them. The point of this video is to try to locate these fictional countries in existent landmasses, as the geological formation and geographical history can result in a quite different world if they existed on entirely new landmasses. And as far as we know, MCU history is very similar to our real world history. So let me do the job for them and make sense of the MCU. Well, since the easiest one of the 3 is Matripor, let's get started with that. We don't exactly know much about Matripor. Most of the information comes from the TV show The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. We know that it is a city-state in Southeast Asia, and it is surrounded by mild mountains. The city is said to have a wealthy high town and a crime-filled low town. The low town is a hub for criminals because the state does not have extradition laws. I'm not going to criticize how the city is as wealthy as it is. I'm here to try to make sense of where Madripoor is. Since the country is probably based off the country of Singapore, and provided that it is an island like in the comics, I looked in the surrounding regions and found 3 plausible locations for the city to be located. The island of Langkawi off the coast of western Malaysia, the Natuna Besar Island, and the last location is very close to the comic location, and it is right here on Lingga and Singap Island. However, because the country is so small, I can believe that this is a whole new landmass in the universe. But the same cannot be said for the following 2 fictional countries. Next up is Sokovia, the fictional nation featured in Avengers Age of Ultron. We know it is a Slavic country in Central or Eastern Europe, but according to Captain America's Civil War, they have physically located the country within what would be Czechia. Then they changed it in the next frame to be between Austria and Italy. We know that it is a country that uses a Cyrillic alphabet, and many Western Slavic countries do not use a Cyrillic alphabet. West Slavic countries like Czechia, Slovakia, and Poland use the Latin alphabet, and so do South Slavic countries like Slovenia and Croatia, who also mainly use the Latin alphabet. Bosnia uses both scripts, and all other Slavic countries mainly use the Cyrillic script. Despite the Marvel wiki saying that the country is located between Czechia and Slovakia, it is very unlikely that this country is actually located here. Sokovia is most likely located between Serbia, Bosnia, and Montenegro, due to the location shown being rather mountainous, and the Sokovian version of the Cyrillic alphabet includes the Latin letter J, which does not exist in Eastern Slavic languages. Also, the wiki states that they used Serbian Cyrillics for Sokovian. There is another fan theory that locates Sokovia in Carpathian Ruthenia, Carpatho-Ukraine, or simply Ruthenia, where the Rusin people live. This suggests a hybrid culture between the West Slavic and East Slavic groups that resulted in the language adopting some of the Latin alphabet. This can be a very interesting idea of alternative history, but sadly Sokovia is unlikely to be located here because the capital city of Sokovia is called Novigrad, literally meaning new town, and that specific spelling is associated with the South Slavic peoples, with a few real towns named Novigrad existing in both Serbia and Bosnia. If Sokovia were to be located in an East Slavic cultured area, it would be spelled Novgorod, or Novograd in a West Slavic cultured area. So, to conclude, Sokovia should be located around or within Serbia. And this makes Zemo's escape from Bucky and Sam in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier make less sense, as he escaped in Latvia and had to travel all the way south to the Balkans. Last but not least, Wakanda, the most inconsistently portrayed fictional nation in the MCU. Unlike Sokovia, where we only got to see a tiny dot on the map, they actually showed a map of Wakanda and its physical location on Earth. They located it entirely within the nation of Kenya, around Lake Turkana. We know that Wakanda is surrounded by mountains and thick jungle, but if you take a look on Google Maps of where they mapped Wakanda to be, you will only find deserts and dunes. Now of course you can argue that the landscape landscape in the MCU has been altered due to the vibranium meteor landing, making the land more fertile than the counterpart in our world. That does explain enough for me in terms of the ecological landscape. But it does not explain the permafrost mountaintops that the movie showed us, where the Jabari tribe lives, as well as the massive waterfall they have shown in the coronation scenes. As if the filmmakers think the audience isn't stupid enough, they also credited the Wakandan language as Xhosa. Excuse me, Xhosa is a language that can only be located in pockets of South Africa. Africa is a continent with thousands of languages, and you pick the one that is spoken nowhere near any of the depictions or theories where fans have ever tried to locate Wakanda. In the comics, they locate Wakanda around the modern country of Uganda, and it kinda makes sense. Depending on how big the country actually is, there are jungles and mountains in this region, as well as a big lake, Lake Victoria, right beside. There is even a permafrost mountain nearby called Ruwenzori Mountains. The natural inhabitants in this area speak a language that belongs to the Bantu language family, an overall group that includes the language of Xhosa. However, it is still an extremely far stretch to explain the usage of Xhosa, as the languages in the Bantu family are extremely different from each other. Think of the difference between Spanish and Russian. I think we'll just have to throw that part entirely in the garbage and set it afire. That is about it for the geography of Wakanda and MCU, but the history of Wakanda is an even bigger issue that requires a ton of work to be properly written within the limits of our history. When I'm eventually done with the MCU history video, there will be a link in the descriptions for that. So my dear audiences, tune back in soon.